In Genoa City, chaos has a strange way of bringing the most unlikely people together. And right now, nobody represents that better than Phyllis Summers and Matt Clark. At first, nobody believed this connection meant anything serious. Even Phyllis herself probably thought Matt was simply another dangerous distraction, a temporary mess she could control before walking away. But the deeper this story goes, the more complicated everything becomes. Because something unexpected is happening between them. Matt Clark's arrival already shocked the entire city. The moment he appeared, old fears returned instantly. People remembered his dark history, his manipulative behavior, and the destruction connected to his name. Nobody trusted him. Nobody wanted him anywhere near their families. But then came the twist nobody saw coming. Matt's memory problems completely changed the situation. Instead of the cold and calculated man everyone expected, Genoa City suddenly found itself dealing with someone confused, vulnerable, and emotionally broken. Matt doesn't even fully understand who he used to be. And strangely enough, that vulnerability may be exactly what's pulling Phyllis closer. Now this is where things become dangerous. Phyllis Summers has always been one of the most unpredictable women in Genoa City history. She follows her instincts, breaks rules, manipulates situations, and survives almost every disaster thrown at her. Some people admire her strength. Others think she creates chaos everywhere she goes. But one thing has always remained true about Phyllis: she hates weakness. That's why her growing compassion toward Matt feels so shocking. During recent emotional moments, Phyllis started seeing something different in him. Instead of viewing him as a monster like everyone else does, she began noticing traces of regret, confusion, and maybe even pain. And that emotional shift could change everything. Of course, not everybody is blind to what's happening. Michael, Baldwin, and Lauren are already growing nervous. They know Phyllis has a long history of getting emotionally attached to dangerous situations. And from their perspective, Matt Clark represents nothing but future destruction. Honestly, they may not be wrong. Because even if Matt seems harmless now, nobody truly knows what happens once his memories fully return. What if the dangerous version of Matt comes back? What if this softer personality disappears completely? That possibility terrifies everyone around Phyllis. But here's the biggest problem of all: Phyllis may already be emotionally invested. And once Phyllis gets emotionally attached, logic usually disappears. Even more surprising is the strange chemistry developing between them. Every scene between Matt and Phyllis feels emotionally charged. There's tension, vulnerability, conflict, attraction, and unpredictability all mixed together at the same time. That kind of connection is rare in Genoa City. In fact, many viewers are already starting to wonder if this could become one of the soap's messiest romance stories in years. And honestly, it might. Because both of these people are deeply damaged in completely different ways. Matt is trying to figure out who he really is. Phyllis is trying to convince herself she still has control over the situation. But emotions are dangerous things, especially when loneliness gets involved. And lately, Phyllis has been lonelier than she wants people to realize. She hasn't had a truly meaningful romance in a very long time. Most relationships in her life eventually explode into betrayal, manipulation, or heartbreak. That emotional emptiness may explain why she feels drawn toward Matt despite every warning sign screaming at her to run away. Meanwhile, Matt appears desperate for connection. Deep down, he fears there may be nobody left who truly cares about him. Nobody waiting for him. Nobody willing to believe he can change. And ironically, Phyllis may become the only person willing to give him that chance. But trusting Matt Clark could become the biggest mistake of her life. Because Genoa City never allows dangerous love stories to stay peaceful for long. And if Phyllis keeps following her heart instead of her instincts, she may be heading directly toward disaster. Yet somehow, that disaster could also become the most passionate relationship either of them has ever experienced. And this story is only beginning. The atmosphere inside Genoa City is changing fast, and people are starting to notice something deeply unsettling about Phyllis Summers. She's smiling again. For most people, that wouldn't seem unusual. But anyone who truly knows Phyllis understands that her happiness usually comes with consequences. And lately, the reason behind that emotional shift appears to be Matt Clark. The same man almost everyone else fears. At first, Phyllis tried convincing herself that her involvement with Matt was only temporary. She told herself she was simply helping someone in crisis. Nothing more. No emotional attachment. No romantic feelings. But that lie is becoming harder to believe. Every conversation between them feels more personal now. More intimate. More emotionally raw. Matt has started opening up about the terrifying gaps in his memory, the confusion inside his mind, and the fear that he may eventually become someone horrible again once his past fully returns. And unexpectedly, Phyllis understands that fear better than most people realize. Because Phyllis herself knows what it feels like to be judged for past mistakes. She knows what it's like when everyone expects the worst from you no matter how hard you try to move forward. She understands loneliness, public humiliation, regret, and emotional isolation. In many ways, Matt's situation mirrors parts of her own history. That emotional similarity is slowly pulling them closer together. But while Phyllis feels sympathy, other people are becoming alarmed. Lauren has already warned her repeatedly. Michael is growing increasingly suspicious. Even Victor Newman has started paying close attention to the situation. And when Victor Newman becomes interested in your personal life, problems usually follow immediately. Victor doesn't trust Matt at all. As far as he's concerned, dangerous people don't magically transform overnight simply because they lose their memory. Victor believes Matt is still hiding something, whether intentionally or not. And honestly, Victor may have a point. Because there are still massive questions surrounding Matt's missing memories. What exactly happened before he arrived in Genoa City? Why are fragments of his past starting to trigger violent emotional reactions? And most importantly, what happens once he remembers everything? Those questions continue haunting everyone involved. Still, none of the warnings seem capable of stopping Phyllis. In fact, the more people criticize Matt, the more defensive she becomes. That's classic Phyllis behavior. The moment the world tells her someone is dangerous, reckless, or impossible to save, part of her immediately wants to prove everyone wrong. It's almost like chaos attracts her emotionally. And Matt represents pure chaos. But there's another reason this connection is becoming so intense. Matt trusts her. In a world where nearly everyone looks at him with fear, suspicion, or hatred, Phyllis treats him like a human being. She listens to him. She challenges him. She argues with him. But she also sees him. And for someone emotionally lost, that kind of connection can become addictive very quickly. Meanwhile, the chemistry between them continues getting stronger. Their conversations feel charged with tension. Every emotional moment carries hidden attraction underneath it. Even when they disagree, the connection remains undeniable. Viewers are starting to notice it too. Some fans believe Matt and Phyllis could become one of the most explosive couples Genoa City has seen in years. Others think the relationship is doomed before it even officially begins. But maybe that's exactly why the story feels so compelling. Because it isn't simple. This isn't some fairy tale romance built on innocence and stability. It's messy, complicated, emotional, dangerous, and strangely authentic. Both of them are carrying emotional scars. Both of them are fighting their past. And both of them desperately want someone to believe they're capable of being loved despite everything they've done. That emotional desperation creates powerful chemistry. But hidden beneath all the growing attraction is a terrifying possibility nobody wants to discuss openly. What if Matt's old personality returns completely? What if the gentle, confused man Phyllis has bonded with suddenly disappears? Would Matt still care about her? Or would she become just another casualty in his dangerous history? Even worse, what if Phyllis eventually discovers she's been manipulated the entire time? That possibility could destroy her emotionally. Still, despite every warning sign, Phyllis keeps moving closer to Matt instead of away from him. And deep down, part of her may already know the truth. She's falling for him. Not the version everyone fears. not the monster from the past, but the broken man standing in front of her now. And that emotional choice may soon change both of their lives forever. As emotions spiral out of control in Genoa City, one terrifying question is beginning to haunt everyone connected to Matt Clark. What happens when the memories finally come back? For weeks, Matt has existed in a fragile emotional state, confused, vulnerable, and disconnected from the darker parts of his past. But lately, strange flashes have started breaking through. Small moments, violent reactions, fragments of memories he cannot fully explain. And every new memory seems to make him more unstable. That's exactly why people around PHYLLIS Summers are becoming increasingly terrified. Because while Matt struggles to rediscover who he used to be, PHYLLIS is getting emotionally deeper than ever before. And now, escaping this situation may no longer be possible. The biggest problem is that Matt himself appears genuinely frightened by what he might uncover. Deep down, he senses there's something terrible buried inside his past. Something dangerous enough to make almost everyone in Genoa City fear him instantly. But without his full memories, Matt doesn't completely understand why. That emotional uncertainty is slowly destroying him. There are moments when he looks at PHYLLIS almost desperately, like she's the only thing keeping him grounded while his identity collapses around him. And honestly, maybe she is. Because for the first time in a very long while, PHYLLIS feels needed. Not manipulated. Not used. Needed. That emotional difference matters more than people realize. Throughout her life, PHYLLIS has often built relationships around chaos, competition, and emotional games. But with Matt, something feels unexpectedly real. Raw. Vulnerable. Honest in a strange way neither of them fully understands yet. And that vulnerability is becoming dangerous for both of them. Especially because outside forces are already moving against this relationship. Victor Newman remains deeply suspicious. Michael Baldwin is watching every move carefully. Lauren is practically begging PHYLLIS to walk away before she gets hurt. But PHYLLIS refuses to listen. In fact, the more everyone attacks Matt, the more protective she becomes. It's almost as if she sees herself in him, another flawed person trying to outrun a damaged history while the world refuses to forgive past mistakes. That emotional connection keeps pulling her closer. And Matt notices it too. Recently, there have been subtle moments where Matt's feelings toward PHYLLIS seem impossible to hide anymore. The way he watches her. The way his entire expression changes when she enters the room. The way he relaxes emotionally whenever she believes in him. It's becoming obvious. Matt is falling for her too. But this growing romance comes with terrifying risks. Because if Matt's memories fully return, everything could change overnight. Imagine the emotional devastation if PHYLLIS discovers the man she trusted is actually capable of horrifying things. Imagine loving someone while constantly questioning whether the person standing in front of you is real, or just a temporary version created by memory loss. That uncertainty would break almost anyone emotionally. Still, PHYLLIS keeps choosing him. And perhaps the most shocking part of all is that Matt may actually be trying to become a better person because of her. That possibility changes everything. Until now, most people believed Matt was beyond redemption. Too dangerous. Too manipulative. Too damaged to ever truly change. But PHYLLIS's presence may be unlocking something inside him nobody expected: guilt. Real guilt. Not fake manipulation. Not calculated performance. Actual regret. There are moments where Matt genuinely seems horrified by what he's starting to remember about himself. As pieces of his past return, he doesn't appear proud of the man he used to be. He seems ashamed. And shame can transform people. Especially when love becomes involved. That's why some viewers are beginning to wonder if PHYLLIS could become Matt's emotional redemption story. The one person capable of helping him rebuild himself before darkness completely consumes him again. But redemption stories in Genoa City rarely happen without pain. Because even if Matt truly wants to change, his past may not allow him to escape so easily. Old enemies could return. Secrets may surface. Victims from his history might demand justice. And once Victor Newman fully decides Matt is a threat, the situation could explode instantly. Yet through all the fear and uncertainty, one truth is becoming impossible to ignore. Matt and Phyllis are emotionally connected now in a way neither of them expected. And once feelings reach that level, walking away becomes almost impossible. Especially for someone like Phyllis Summers, a woman who has spent her entire life chasing dangerous emotions even when they threaten to destroy her. The problem is, this time, the danger may be real. As the emotional connection between Matt Clark and Phyllis Summers grows stronger, another powerful force inside Genoa City is quietly preparing for war. Victor Newman. And if history has proven anything, it's this: when Victor decides someone is dangerous, he rarely stops until that person is completely destroyed. Right now, Matt has become Victor's newest target. From the very beginning, Victor never trusted the sudden changed man version of Matt Clark. He believes memory loss doesn't erase someone's true nature. In Victor's eyes, dangerous people stay dangerous no matter how vulnerable they appear on the surface. That belief is exactly why the situation surrounding Phyllis is becoming explosive. Because Victor already sees what's happening. He sees the growing emotional attachment. He sees Phyllis defending Matt more aggressively every day. And perhaps most importantly, Victor sees the possibility that Phyllis could become emotionally blind before realizing the danger she's truly facing. That possibility alone is enough to make Victor act. Behind closed doors, whispers are already spreading through Genoa City that Victor may be gathering information about Matt's forgotten past. Quiet investigations. Hidden connections. Secrets that haven't surfaced yet. And if Victor discovers something horrifying, everything could collapse instantly. But there's another layer to this story that makes the situation even more dangerous. Phyllis hates being controlled. The moment someone tells her who she should trust or love, she immediately pushes back harder. That rebellious instinct has defined her entire life. So the more Victor pressures her to stay away from Matt, the more emotionally committed she becomes. It's almost inevitable. And Matt notices it too. For someone struggling with fear, confusion, and emotional isolation, Phyllis has become his one source of stability. She's the person standing beside him while everyone else waits for him to fail. That kind of loyalty creates intense emotional bonds very quickly. But what nobody fully understands yet is whether Matt himself is emotionally stable enough for a relationship. Because beneath his calm exterior, cracks are starting to appear. Lately, there have been disturbing moments where Matt reacts emotionally without understanding why. Sudden flashes of anger, anxiety, fear. Strange emotional triggers connected to memories he still can't fully access. It's like two versions of Matt are fighting inside the same person. And that internal battle may eventually become impossible to control. Phyllis senses it too, even if she refuses to admit it openly. There are moments where she looks genuinely frightened by what she sees in him. Tiny glimpses of darkness slipping through the vulnerable mask. Small reminders that the dangerous man everyone fears may still exist beneath the surface. But instead of walking away, Phyllis moves even closer emotionally. That's what makes this story so complicated. Part of her believes Matt deserves compassion. Part of her believes people can change. And another part of her may secretly believe she's the only person capable of saving him. That emotional mindset is incredibly risky. Because when Phyllis starts believing she can fix someone, disaster usually follows. Meanwhile, Michael Baldwin and Lauren are becoming increasingly desperate to intervene before things spiral completely out of control. They know Phyllis better than almost anyone. And they understand how emotionally reckless she becomes when strong feelings take over. They've seen this pattern before. But this situation feels different. Because unlike previous romances, Matt's instability carries genuine danger attached to it. And yet, despite all the warnings, the chemistry between Matt and Phyllis continues intensifying. Every conversation feels emotionally charged now. Every shared glance carries hidden tension. There's attraction building beneath every vulnerable moment between them. And viewers can already sense the inevitable truth approaching fast. This relationship is heading toward either passionate love or catastrophic destruction. Possibly both. What makes the story even more fascinating is that Matt himself seems conflicted about his feelings for Phyllis. Part of him clearly wants emotional closeness, but another part fears hurting her once the truth about his past fully surfaces. That fear appears genuine. There are moments where Matt almost seems ready to push Phyllis away for her own protection. But every time he tries creating distance, she pulls him back emotionally without even realizing it. And now they may already be too deeply connected to stop what's coming next. Because once real love enters the picture, secrets become far more dangerous. Especially in Genoa City. And if Victor uncovers the truth before Matt does himself, the fallout could destroy everything before this romance even has a chance to survive. Everything inside Genoa City is now moving toward one unavoidable collision. Matt Clark's past, Phyllis Summers' emotions, and Victor Newman's determination to stop this relationship before it destroys lives. The deeper this story goes, the clearer one truth becomes: this is no ordinary romance. What's happening between Matt and Phyllis feels darker, riskier, and far more emotionally explosive than anyone expected when they first crossed paths. And now, the situation may be reaching the point of no return. Over the past few weeks, Phyllis has slowly transformed from someone suspicious of Matt into someone emotionally attached to him in ways she never intended. At first, she believed she could stay in control. She thought she could manage the situation while protecting herself emotionally. But Phyllis Summers has never been very good at avoiding dangerous emotions, especially when passion becomes involved. Now she finds herself defending Matt against nearly everyone around her. Friends are worried. Family members are suspicious. Victor Newman is watching closely. Yet none of it seems strong enough to pull her away. If anything, the pressure only strengthens her emotional connection to Matt. And that's exactly what makes this romance so dangerous. Because while Phyllis is falling deeper in love, Matt's memories continue returning piece by piece. Sometimes it happens suddenly. A face, a voice, a violent emotional reaction he cannot fully explain. And every new fragment pushes him closer to the terrifying truth about who he used to be. The worst part? Matt himself appears horrified by what he's beginning to remember. That fear has become impossible to hide. There are moments where he looks completely shaken after experiencing flashes from his past. Moments where guilt seems to consume him emotionally. And perhaps for the first time in his life, Matt genuinely appears afraid of himself. That emotional struggle changes everything. Because if Matt truly regrets the man he once was, redemption may actually be possible. And Phyllis sees that possibility. She sees pain behind his eyes. She sees loneliness. She sees someone desperate for another chance before the darkness fully returns. But love alone may not be enough to save him. Especially once Victor makes his final move. Behind the scenes, Victor Newman has reportedly been uncovering disturbing information connected to Matt's history. Secrets powerful enough to completely destroy whatever trust Phyllis still has left in him. And if Victor exposes those secrets publicly, the fallout could be catastrophic. Not only for Matt, but for Phyllis emotionally as well. Because the closer she gets to him, the more devastating the betrayal will feel if everything falls apart. Still, despite all the risks, the emotional chemistry between them keeps growing stronger. Viewers can feel it in every scene. The tension, the vulnerability, the attraction, the emotional chaos. Matt and Phyllis bring out something raw in each other that few couples in Genoa City history have managed to capture recently. Their connection feels unpredictable in the best possible way. Messy, complicated, dangerous, but also strangely real. And honestly, that may be exactly why fans are becoming so invested in this storyline already. Soap audiences love romance built on emotional conflict. They love relationships where both people are flawed, damaged, and fighting internal battles while trying to hold on to love at the same time. That's exactly what Matt and Phyllis represent. Two emotionally broken people trying to find connection in the middle of chaos. But the tragedy may already be written into their future. Because even if Matt truly changes, even if Phyllis genuinely loves him, the ghosts of his past may never stop haunting them. Enemies could return. Hidden crimes may surface. Old victims might demand revenge. And once the full truth finally explodes across Genoa City, nobody knows whether their relationship can survive the pressure. Still, one thing feels undeniable now. Matt Clark and Phyllis Summers are no longer simply a temporary storyline. They are becoming one of the central emotional storms inside the young and the restless. And whether this relationship ends in redemption, heartbreak, betrayal, or destruction, viewers are going to be watching every second unfold. Because sometimes the most unforgettable love stories are the ones that should never have happened in the first place. And this may become the messiest, most dangerous romance Genoa City has seen in years.